I'll start again. Oh,
Yeah.
and some other people have joined, so perfect. Okay, great. So yes, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining for this webinar on the myDewetra platform, together with CIMA Research Foundation and with the support of the Associated Programme on Flood Management. This is part of the Disaster Risk Reduction team in the Water Youth Network and also part of the Early Warning Systems Young Professional Network as a capacity building webinar for our members, but we've also opened it up to non-members. So many of you will be familiar with the networks and some won't be. So just to give you kind of a brief background on Water Youth Network and the EWS Young Professionals Network before we get started. So the Water Youth Network is a network of volunteers. We focus on different thematic areas, one being disaster risk reduction, others being water governance, integrated water resources management, and WASH, water and sanitation. And this webinar is part of the disaster risk reduction team's effort. And within the DRR team, we also have the Early Warning Systems Young Professionals Network, and it's been established for about 1.5 years. And we have about 85 members from 35 different countries across the globe. And as part of that, we're trying to bring together different young professionals working on different aspects of early warning systems, communications, emergency response, the more technical forecasting, meteorology side of things, and the communication, social science side. So trying to bring together all those different disciplines. And that's why this fits very nicely with the myDewetra platform, which you're going to hear all about, because it has some similar goals around collaboration and interdisciplinary action. Yes, and please get in touch for those people who are not members. If you want to get more information, just drop me an email and we can tell you some more information about the Water Youth Network. Just before we get started, just also some housekeeping rules. Most of you are doing it, but just yeah, if you can all not use your video, that would be brilliant, just to keep the bandwidth low and so that we can hear the speaker. Please also stay on mute, that would be brilliant. And we have 3 different opportunities for you to propose questions to Marco. Many of you also already proposed questions and they have been in your registration form and they have already been sent to Marco. So he's going to try and address them. He's going to try and address them in his current presentation. And the presentation will also be sent to you afterwards along with this recording of the webinar, so don't worry about that. And yes, so if you have questions now, please put them in the chat box, and myself and my colleagues Adele and Ulwasi will be running through those questions, and then I will be moderating 3 different question sessions throughout the webinar where we're going to ask those, I'm going to ask those directly to Marco. So please put your questions in the chat box as soon as you think of them. Okay, I think that is everything for the introduction. So I'm going to introduce Marco Masabo now from CIMA Research Foundation, and he's going to get stuck into telling you all about the myDewetra platform. Marco, over to you.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to both share the screen and also open the video for 1 sec. And if the connection gets too low or you are not hearing me, please just let me know. Can you hear me clearly?
Yep, all good.
Good. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks Lydia and Ramesh from the World Meteorological Organization for the organization of this first meeting that is, for me, it's very interesting to get to know each other and to see also potential cooperation between our organization and your very interesting volunteer organization. We work a lot with the volunteer in the civil protection system, but your expertise and the way how you have established your association is it's very, very interesting and attractive. So I wish that this one will just be one of our next possible interaction. What we are going to talk about is basically 3 things. I would like to introduce what we heard, how we consider and how we approach the early warning system, especially for weather-related disasters, and how the technology that we developed, myDewetra, can assist to improve early warning system. The second part will be more on the live demonstration of myDewetra world, and finger crossed, the network will be on our side. And the third and the final part will be on few example of implementation. And for this last presentation, I will get the help of Alessia Matano, which she is a researcher in CIMA. She is working with me in the implementation of the Volta. So a few words on who we are. First, the CIMA is the Italian acronym of International Center for Environmental Monitoring. We work on research and technology. We have been funded by two main organizations. One is the Italian Civil Protection Department, and the second one is the University of Geneva. So you already see from this, the founding institution, that we are trying to combine the science, the scientific approach with operation. And this one is something that we brought with us along all our history of 25 years of activity. So operation and science, and how science and technology can support the operation, can support a better civil protection system and better disaster risk management system. We also have other local authorities that are part of our system. We work on disaster risk reduction. I'm sure that you are aware of what disaster risk reduction it is, civil protection, and also a very nice field of marine biodiversity, which will not be the topic of this scientific. We are a competence center, so in the Italian civil protection system, we have several scientific institutions that support the Italian civil protection system in improving their operation, either in the early warning system, in the earthquake and seismic monitoring, in the risk assessment, and so on. So CIMA is helping the Italian civil protection system in all weather-related risk. And from this experience, more than 15 years ago, we started also to cooperate abroad with many other countries and many other international organizations as WMO. We are more than 100 people working on this very specific sector. We are working currently in more than 59 countries, and we have a very nice operational room where all the tools that we test, that we develop from our researcher, are then tested in the operational room before going into operation. So what you can see here, it is the link between the research, the scientific community, and the operation. And this one has a big impact also in our organization, how we are organized internally. But for us, it's always very important that our science needs to be used to improve disaster risk management. Three main pillars. We try to combine research, training, and capacity development. We work with many international organizations. Those are the countries where we are more active in these latest years. UNDRR, World Meteorological Organization, ESA, and the FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Bank, the European Commission, the Italian Civil Protection Department as well. So as you can see, our main partnership is with the UN system and the other donors. So very rarely we work for the private sector, not by choice, but just because it is like this. So we are looking for partners with institutional organizations that can, where we can join force to improve the disaster risk management in specific field or in specific. Let me just say a few things after this introduction on CIMA, on what we consider early warning system. As I'm sure that you are aware about what is an early warning system, but you can find very different definition around in the community. What we are referring to is actually a definition that has been approved by the UN General Assembly as part of the Sendai framework. Now, if we would be on a face-by-face workshop, I will ask everybody to raise their hand if they ever heard about the Sendai framework. Now, as we are not in a face-by-face workshop, I just assume that some of you will know about the Sendai framework for action, and some maybe it's the first time that you heard. So the Sendai framework for action is a global initiative where country and member states commit to reduce the impact of disasters by 2030. As part of this big commitment, there is also a bunch of terminology in the definition. And this is where the early warning system has been, well, I would say, formalized in written by a UN General Assembly. So the early warning system, it is an integrated system for hazard monitoring, forecasting and prediction, disaster risk assessment, communication and preparedness system, activities, system and processes, so it's very complicated things, that enable individuals, community, governments, business. As you can see here, nobody is out of the picture. So this is an important concept. In the early warning system, there is no one single mandated institution, but it is a business of everybody, even individuals are not out of this picture, to take timely action to reduce the disaster risk in advance of hazardous events. So this is again another important thing. So the overall scope of the early warning system is not only to forecast what can happen, to predict what can happen, but is to take action to reduce the impact of disasters. So it goes from the monitoring, from the forecasting to the prediction, communication, preparedness, with the ultimate goal to do something into the ground to reduce the potential impact of disaster. So this is a very comprehensive way to look at the early warning system. And this is what we are referring to. So there are 4 components. First component is disaster risk knowledge, which means that we need to understand where the disaster can occur and what are the potential effects of disaster, what is the frequency of disaster occurring in that specific area. The second component is on the detection, monitoring, analysis, and forecasting of the hazard and the possible consequences. And here, all the hydro-meteorological services come into the picture, but also the other ministry that have the mandate to evaluate also the possible consequences. And then we have the dissemination. So this information, this forecast need to be transformed into something that can be understood by officials, by the actors, the public actors, but also to the individual. And this communication needs to come from an official source, an authoritative source, which is that need to be timely, accurate, and actionable. So again, this one is again the concept of forecast. So we need to tell to the people what might happen tomorrow, but also these forecasts need to be transformed in action. So tomorrow the school will be closed. Tomorrow you cannot go in that area, and so on. And then there is a need also to have the preparedness at all levels to respond to the warning. So we are not responding to the disaster, but again, this is the concept of responding to the action, what we do when we get the information. So these 4 components, and what I'm going to show you in these few minutes, what we are doing at CIMA, try to help these 4 components. Disaster risk knowledge, detection, monitoring, analysis, and forecasting, warning and dissemination, and preparedness. How myDewetra platform can support each of these phases and what actually we need to develop more. Let me start with disaster risk knowledge. We did the project in Africa, and actually we are doing now on the risk model. So trying to have a full understanding of what are the impact and the risk for the country on the different hazards. You can find all the results in this website, www.riskprofilesundrr.org. This one has been done with the UNDRR. More than 16 African countries, we completed the multi-hazard risk profile. This is an example. For instance, what are the annual average number of potentially affected people from floods? This, I would say, is Tanzania. You can see the colors is the number of people that we expect in the future to be affected by floods. And also in the projected climate. So what will happen with the future climate as temperature is going to rise, precipitation might rise, might decrease depending on the area of the globe. There will be a change in the climate. So how this one will affect the risk. So those are information that we will need to be based for our early warning system, because the action that you need to put in place depend on the risk that you are facing and who is going to be affected or not. This is also another example for Zambia. So we are now in the position to know even the gender distribution or youth or potentially elderly affected the people in the different area of the continent, of the countries, but also what are the sector, the economic sector that be. So all this information are now they're being produced. We have developed this approach, and we are using this approach in more than 16 African countries. And if you are interested, I encourage you to go on the website and to eventually contact me with on this. Second point, what we do on the detection, monitoring, analysis, and forecasting. I would say that this one is maybe the field where we have been developing more tools. First is the weather research and forecasting model. This is a weather model that we are using in Italy, but we are also able to implement in other countries to support the weather forecast, especially when we are targeting weather extreme. One nice example that we done is during ongoing flood in Iran, we have been able to set up this weather forecasting model in almost real time to give forecast for the 5 days ahead. And this is one example. So during the emergency, in this case, an international donors call us to have a prediction of the weather and how the weather could be worse or eventually improve in that specific area to see what will be the evolution of the ongoing floods. So this one was been done using an urgent computer and a supercomputer center that we have in Europe. This is another example from Mozambique, and again, this is an urgent computing. It means that right before the EDI was coming, we set up a model to forecast what will be the impact and the landfall of this extreme weather in Mozambique. And this is another. The second part, so from the weather to the hydrologist, we developed the hydrological tool that we call the flood-proof. It's a probabilistic operational forecasting system. It's physically based. All this is also software. So the chain is basically we have input from meteorological model, eventually from the one that I was describing before. You have input from the observation, you have input, then we have our hydrological model can predict the status of the water, and then we have a hydraulic model that will give the inundation map. So we go back to assess what will be the possible inundation map for the specific event, so in real time. I'm just showing you one example for Bolivia. So this one was WRF model. And again, you are seeing all this information through the WYN. If you can see here, so the WYN I will explain in a minute, but it's really the system that allows us to visualize all this. This is the meteorological forecast. This is the hydrological forecast. This, in this case, is probabilistic, so you can have many, many outputs on the possible outcome of the discharge. And then you have also the hazard map. And so 4 days in advance, you can have the potential hazard map in that specific location. From the hazard map, you can eventually also assess what are going to be the impact, in this case, from the building area in this. So this is how we use the entire forecasting chain to come out with the We also have developed again in the monitoring and forecasting system, also a system for forecasting the forest fire. This is a Risico. It is our model that can predict the severity of potential fire in a specific area. This is with Bolivia. It is again open source software everybody can access. This is an example from Europe. As you can see here in the orange zone is where we had the biggest fire. So the model is in agreement with what was then observed. And here it used the Italian civil protection system to organize the airplane for extinguishes the fire, but also to patrol the territory. So suppose you have you are forecasting there is a high spot area in one specific region, so you can send your people to the field to just patrol and see if there are fire in there and have an early detection. Last example for the monitoring that I wanted to show is on open hardware monitoring system. So we realized that ground station are rarely available with the sufficient in a sufficient amount. So we developed a project taking the idea from the open source community to develop open hardware community. So everybody can potentially build its own weather station. What we do, we develop the open source software, we develop the data logger, and so people just can connect this the different device to build an own radio station. We can also prepare kit like this IKEA model. I don't know if you are familiar with that. You have a box with all the things inside, the instruction, and you can do by yourself. I did even by myself, so it's really, really easy to do it. We estimate, this was one example with some colleagues from Ethiopia, so they built an entire station in less than 30 minutes. And we also have many, this is for example, in Bolivia, we deploy many of these open hardware stations in Bolivia, and those are providing input to the forecasting system, to the monitoring system, to the weather system to have more information. They are then used from hydro-meteorological service for providing forecast and from civil protection for taking decision on what you need to do. But now the point is that how can we connect all this system? How can we connect the knowledge, the disaster risk knowledge that we have already available and that are into the country? How can we connect with the information from the monitoring, analysis, and forecasting data? How can we connect with the warning and dissemination and communication? How can we connect with the preparedness response capacity? We develop also other tools for these other things, the web alert for the warning and other tools for the preparedness and response. But then if you are interested, I can send information on that, but I did not include in my presentation. So the real system that will help us to connect all this information is the WYN. It is here where the WYN comes into it. So the WYN will bring information on hazard, on exposure, on vulnerability for multiple sources, because in that picture you can immediately realize that the risk information are in one place, one ministry, other information are in another ministry. So how can we connect all this information in one single place? This is where the DeWetra comes into the picture. And this is a system that is able to gather all this information in one single place. So from multiple sources and from multiple stakeholders. This is an example on myDewetra as a multi-agency database. So each agency will have its own database where to put the information, and the system DeWetra will enable the exchange of this information so people can see on the web system all this information coming from the multiple agencies. So it's really one single access. So the operator will live a easier life to access all this information from some single portal. You can imagine how many information you can get that are useful, especially now, nowadays. So it is from the regional level, I mean, from the high level to go to the territorial level. So those information can then cascade down to the local level as well with the help. And Lydia, I think with this, I just want to conclude this first part on what is myDewetra. I take a little bit longer to come into the picture, but I think that then the next session we will have a practical presentation of the system, then we can have more information.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Marco. I don't see any questions popping up yet, so I think we can go straight to the next section. And just to remind everyone that if you do have questions, please pop them into the chat box, and we will ask those to Marco after the next presentation. And then at the very end, we'll have another chance to ask some questions. So yeah, thanks again, Marco. Take it over.
Thank you. Yes. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
So, the system is password protected, and the reason why the system is password protected is just because the information that are inside, some of the information that are inside cannot be delivered to. So this is why it is password protected.
Marco, sorry to say, we cannot see the myDewetra screen. We are just seeing the presentation.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So I need to switch to this, I think. You're right. I didn't move from that. Can you see now? Or not?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know if I'm just seeing. What are you seeing? Zoom or myDewetra?
myDewetra. Yeah.
With Africa in the middle, empty everywhere. Okay. Yep. Okay, good. So this is the system. The system is WebGIS system. So it is embedded in a Google Earth engine. So it has all the capability of Google Earth. And as I said, here you can include a large amount of information. What we did with this myDewetra World is basically, this one is a big effort to collect globally available information around the world and to bring into this single system. Then I will spend a few words how country can also access to the system, and any country can access to the system, they can have an access to the system, and even integrate their national data set or their local data set. So let me give an example of how we could use myDewetra system. I was in a workshop in Zambia in January, and it was a demonstration of the DeWetra. So it was the 2nd of January, sorry, it was the 2nd of February. So this is the first functionality that we have in the DeWetra. So you can set up the time range here. So basically we can say that now the system is set that we were in the 2nd of February and we were looking back until the 31 of January. So all the data that will be uploaded into the system refer to this time range. And this is very important for forecaster because sometimes a forecaster wants to go back into the past and see what's happened that specific day in that specific region and see if there is any similarity on what is happening currently. Let's start with the observation. So this section will tell us what is the situation, the current weather, hydrological, and environmental situation as per today. So what we know as per today. So all the information in the observation is from the past to the recent. So we can have information on rainfall. As you can see here, there are many data sources. There are some data sources for JAXA, some data source from NASA, some data source for HSAF, which is a European initiative. So those are the situation on the rainfall. And for the rainfall situation, what you can also say is this is the last hour, but suppose you want to know what was the rainfall in the last 24 hours. In the last 24 hours. Let me see if it's doing something. Okay, it's doing. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So you can see here, there was some precipitation in central South Africa. Then there is a storm coming from the ocean to into the ground. So we might have some rainfall in the north of Zambia. How you can see in north of Zambia, so you can basically upload the administrative border. And you can see here, this is Zambia. Can you see the hand as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So this is where we are. So north of Zambia. So there were some precipitation already in the past day. What we can also take a look is on the soil moisture. And this one is another service from Copernicus. Copernicus is a European services, is from the European Commission. They are providing those information, again, free of charge, available over the web in a website, but not in one unique place. So what we do here, we took everything in one single place. And that for the Copernicus services, I moved to the Antarctic, I think. We can understand what is the soil water index. So the content, the amount of water there is in the soil. So you can understand what will be the response, the hydrological response in case new precipitation will occur. And as you can see here, in Zambia, we have a pretty wet condition of the soil. It is blue. So it means that the condition of the soil is very wet, as you can see here. So those are for the observation. But then we want to know what is going to be the forecast. In this case, we have several options in terms of model. For meteorological model, we have ACMWF, but let me put the GFS, which is a global system, again, provided by NOAA. And what we can interrogate is what will be the total precipitation for the next 24 hours, cumulated over 24 hours. And you can see here that is going to be pretty relevant precipitation in Zambia again. So we have very wet condition, a good amount of water is already into the field, and the forecast are forecasting a new storm coming in. but we don't know yet what will be the reaction of this in terms of the hydrological response. So we also have a hydrological model. In this case is GLOFAS. GLOFAS is again a Copernicus services that will give you what are the evolution of the discharge in some session, hydrological section. So we have a very simple visualization technique. So if it is purple, means that we overcome the highest threshold. So it means that it's very dangerous situation. If the tip is going up, means that the tendency is to increase. So as you can see here, north of Zambia, we have pretty much severe situation in there. We can also see all the information from GLOFAS. What is that? All the other information from GLOFAS. If I will be able to click. I don't know what's happening. Sorry for that. I don't know. Well, this is it should appear a graph that will tell you the hydrological response, but I cannot now touch the tip with the mouse. But doesn't matter. This one I will show you during the question times. I will try to see if I can get those information. But also what we can have is the impact in this case. So for instance, in this case, we together with SCMWF, we have developed a model to assess the impact of this specific flood. You can see here that the model is predicting that the amount of population affected in this region here. So this one is something that is coming as a impact, the forecast, the impact-based forecast. So there are between 20,000 and 5,000 people that are potentially affected in that specific area. And that is something that actually happened. This one is something that really happened in that case, in that specific area. And in fact, what we can see here, it is in the event case. So we also have included some flood mapping, into the system. You can see here that those areas been flooded from the satellite as well. So actually, this via flood continued. The rainfall continued for more than 15 days, and in March we have this hazard flood, with this map on the flood area. What we can also include here is the exposure. So what are the main roads that might be affected, or what are the health facility that might be affected, or what are the population that might be affected in this case. Where is that? The settlements and the education facility that can be affected, and so on. All this information can be incorporated in one single place, and then can be visualized. But also what we want to say, also the hazard map eventually, for the hazard map for the system. And this is going to be, for instance, these are our hazard map that we have produced. So I need to close some of this. And those are the hazard map. Those are the hazard map in Zambia. Those are the one for 500-year return period in that case. So as you can see, everything can be merged in one single place. And this is how the system is being used. So as a big organizer of information, that can enable and facilitate the access to information to different stakeholders in the picture. I will close with this demonstration here. I hope I gain a little bit of time. Thank you very much, Lydia.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Marco. That was really interesting to see the platform itself and all the different functionalities of it. It's really great how it can kind of bring all that different data, risk information data and the real-time data together. We have lots of questions coming in. So we have some from the previous presentation. So I might just throw those out there first. One question from Anna about the downscaling processes. Are they developed in the CIMA servers or in local servers where the system is installed?
You mean downscaling for the precipitation or for the hydrological model?
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I did a question, and yeah, I mean for both, because I understand that these processes take time, a lot of time, and if it's for forecasting, it might take even days. So I understand that also is needed some kind of special service to do this. And my question is, if you, I mean, this is run in CIMA, or you require some special service in the place where the system is installed?
Okay. Yeah, so for the WYN system, so the WYN system is the big organizer of information. So in principle, does not have an hydrological forecasting system embedded. So this is something that is can be added, but we can add also other hydrological model from other institutions. So for our hydrological model, usually we have both solutions. Either we have a big machine in the local server, or we have the big machine in our server. It highly depends on the information, on the local information that are available. So if for instance, the hydrological and meteorological institute, they have their own meteorological model, they run their own meteorological model, it's usually easier to install our hydrological model in the same place. So we avoid the transfer of information from one institution to the other one. If there are no big data locally, then it is better to use the installation in our server, as we are already getting a lot of global information, and it is easier and faster to run in our services. So, but the system is flexible in that.
Brilliant.
It really depends on the case by case. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question, we have a couple to get through. Another question from Mariana at Practical Action. She's wondering, how much do the open hardware monitoring stations cost that you mentioned in the first presentation?
Mm-hmm. So basically, as I said, this is something that you can do even by yourself, but if you buy the kit, it is around, I think, 2,000 for a rain gauge and temperature, and I think 4,000 for a fully meteorological station. And we can go a little bit less with a hydrological station, but I can write here the website, acronet.cc, where you can find all the information about the station. Yeah.
Brilliant, thanks so much. Okay, a question from Adele on the matter of scale. The system uses Google Earth, which is at one resolution, and models, which might be at another resolution. And how do these kind of different resolutions interact, and does one take precedent over the other?
Well, I mean, this is, I mean, it's something that with the WYN you can see the different resolution in the system. So when you zoom in, you can really see that there is a different resolution. So, I mean, it is not always the case that we can solve this problem, but at least with the platform, you can realize there is this different resolution, so you can interpret the result in a different way depending on the scale. I don't know if I answered to your question in that case.
Okay, great. And Anna is asking again about the information provided by satellite and global sources. How reliable are they for more mountainous regions? And is some other kind of downscaling needed for these type of regions?
Well, the effort in myDewetra world is to demonstrate there is already a wealth of information available globally, that if you integrate properly, it can support an expert to have a better understanding and a better forecast. So we are just bringing this information to a single place. Then the reliability in terms of when they are available, usually those information are pretty much stable. So they are produced with the same frequency and the same times, which is a very important requirement from the operational, from the operation.
Great.
I understand that when you look at the rainfall map from satellites, I am my side. Marcus not okay. From satellite, there is the bias. So this one is rely then on the operator, on the user, to interpret correctly and to put his knowledge in understanding what is the reading.
Okay, great. So we have another question here on how is user-defined information input into the system?
How is user-defined? I'm not sure if I got this point.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they mean by user-defined. Is that maybe crowdsourced information, or is that like localized NHMS information?
Okay. So no, we are not using crowdsourced information. Usually it comes from, well, I would say authoritative source. So NOAA, JAXA,
Okay.
European Commission, all these things. But then when we go into the country, it is the country that need to decide what kind of information you want to see. DeWetra is just giving you the space and the method of how to organize this information in a way that can be comparable with the other information and accessible. So it is then usually the user that will decide what kind of information. So NHMS or the Italian civil or the civil protection, not the Italian civil protection.
Great.
Civil
Hope
protection.
that answered your question. And another one from Alice. How have you validated the data? Do you have an estimation of the accuracy of the data?
What we do, we validate the data that are coming from our products. So from the WRF or flood-proof product and so on. The data that we include in the DeWetra, we assume that the institution they produce it, they are validating the data. So we are not validating the data coming from the Copernicus services, or we are not validating the data coming from NOAA. It is their job to do that, or at least it's out of the mandate of the DeWetra to do that. Of course, the system can allow you to see how those products are performing in your country. So if I'm a hydro-meteorological service, I want to see if the product from NOAA is good or not in my country. That's something that I can do with the system. But it's not the system or us doing this systematically.
Okay, great. So we have one other question from Mariana. It's a kind of a multitude of questions in one, so hopefully we'll get through them all. How does the myDewetra system work when the project funding ends? Is it handed over to be used, operated by an NHMS, or does CIMA own the system and countries pay to access it? And how much does it cost to access or run?
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you. I can send also circulated documents where this one is set up. So we have basically two big levels of access. So if a country wants to just have an access to the system as it is, this is free of charge. There is no cost in that. So this one will be maintained by CIMA, Italian Civil Protection, as a global initiative. And this one is guaranteed to be like this forever. I just want to mention that there is an agreement between the Italian Civil Protection and the World Meteorological Organization that any NHMS can access to the system free of charge. So there is this institutional setup, so this system will run, myDewetra.org. But if a country wants to customize much more and wants to have a system in own server, this is also can be done. So at the end of the project, the NHMS will run the system on their own. We have example of both. So like in Bolivia, it is the National Hydro-Meteorological Service and Civil Defense, they are running the system locally. It is completely localized, also in the Caribbean. For other cases, the system has the access to myDewetra World, so the global initiative. Despite that, any NMHS can upload data in the system, even in the global version.
Brilliant. That's a really good answer. Okay, and another connected question on that. So if an NHMS uploads their local country data, example rainfall river gauge data, is it viewable by other users? And what do you do when the data is protected?
Okay, this administrative authorization setup allow the owner of the data to decide who can view the data. So this is all the authorization process. That's why I point a little bit more attention on that. So it is the owner of the data that will decide what kind of data can be visible by other institutions, even in the national level. Some cases occur that in the civil defense, you have some data that cannot be shared with other organizations. So in that case, those data are protected into the system. I just want to underline that data, even in the global application, does not need to move. They can stay in local server. It's just the system that is connecting this, the accessibility, but data are not moved. They stay on the local server.
Okay, brilliant.
I think I answered, yeah.
That's all the questions for now. So yeah, you can go ahead and do the final part of the presentation, and then we'll take a few more questions at the end. So please pop in your questions as soon as you have them, and we'll do our best to get finished by 1:15.
Okay. I will try to run a little bit on this to just give can you see this screen, or are you still seeing the weather?
No, I can see the screen.
So I will go a little bit quicker. As I said, there is some extra material at the end of the slide, and you can take a look if you want, and please do not hesitate to come back. This is one example. Actually, this is my city, the city where I live. We usually have many flash flood. So Italy is a case that we call data-rich context in this case. In Italy, we have any kind of disaster. Earthquake, volcanoes, flood, flash flood, landslide, nuclear parts, and epidemic, of course, as many countries in this area. But so we have plenty of disaster in that. So that's why the civil protection system historically developed a lot. So this is how the system of data information sharing works. So it's completely decentralized. So each region has its own stations, its own meteorological system, its own hydrological system. It's completely decentralized. So the question was, how can we build a system that can enable the sharing of the information among all these regions? Because people traveling from one region to another need to understand what is going on. And even the rivers, they are moving from one region to another one. You need to ensure to have this exchange of information. And that's where the system, DeWetra, has been built. Those are examples. This one is for the radars. We have 21 radars. So all the radars in real time are sharing information to get a rainfall map in the real time. We have more than 5,000 sensors deployed in Italy. And you can see here, you can have a rainfall map based also on the station and the warning in the station. So you see here the red dot means that we have very intense precipitation in there. You have the probabilistic discharge for each river. In this case was a river in our region. So you have the discharge. So we have a hydrological model that is running all around Italy, and those information are distributed by the weather platform in the both probabilistic statistics. You have all the information on exposure, railroad, hospital, school, road. And for this, each of this information into the system, you can get also directly the contact for the hospital. So who is the responsible focal point for that, what you should do, and so on. And you can merge with the hazard. Again, this is Genova. I encourage you, if you have the possibility to visit Genova. It's a lovely place, but there is a lot of flood-prone area. And a lot of these flash floods. So those are the flood hazard map that can be immediately overlaid with the hazard map. And then we have what we call the web alert. So each of these regions are assessed for the potential risk of flood or forest fire. So this is the case. For instance, you can see here that was a red alert in this region. And this is used to communicate to the population. So this information then sent to the population with the information, what to do, how to behave. This one again is done through the technology, Let me just give you a few words on DeWetra in Bolivia. So I think the message they want to pass on this, that before we were cooperating with CIMA and the civil defense, this was not there. So we start to cooperate through the implementation of the DeWetra platform. But actually, the big added value of the system is to bring those two organizations together to see how to make the system working. So how the CIMA, which is the hydro-meteorological services, should inform the civil defense on the possible dangerous situation. How those exchange of data can be established between the two organizations. And this one went even in a new law that regulate the exchange of information between them. But the trigger was the DeWetra system. That is something that we like to think that the DeWetra system is the trigger even for this more institutional cooperation. So this is again is a bulletin. So it's a warning bulletin. So it's produced looking at the system DeWetra and then analyzing the different situation, and then this bulletin is distributed to the population. Just last things is this one was the forest fire in the Amazonia. If you can see here through the DeWetra, what we have is the sentinel data. So the brown area here is the burn area, and the dots are the modest hotspot. You can see here there's good agreement between the two. And this one was the forecasting system that we have implemented in Bolivia, and that institution were able to get through the system. So it was a very high possibility to have a hazard condition on the forest fire. So this is again something you can do through. I will leave the floor now to Alessia for the very last part on Volta.
Yes, Marco, thank you. I will, I think all of you can see me now. I will also share my screen. Please let me know if you're able to see it. Hope so. Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, if you cannot see or the screen or you cannot listen to me, please just interrupt me. So in this last presentation, what we would like to give you just a first glimpse of what will be the future of the DeWetra, the future development, and how these are going to be driven by new perspectives that come from current project, like for example the Volta project that we are currently working on together with the WMO, which is the main manager of the project, and DBA and GWP. So first of all, let's have an overview of what is it, the Volta basin. So the Volta basin, it's cover an area of around 400,000 square kilometers and cross around 6 countries, mainly Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, and Benin, are just partly crossed by the Volta basin with a percentage of around 1.4% of the basin. One is that Togo, only the 6% is covered by only 6% is part of the Volta basin, and but is a really significant percentage of the country itself, around 47. And the main countries that are crossed by the Volta basin are Ghana and Burkina Faso, which occupy around 40% of the basin itself. So the Volta basin have seen so far 29 million of people from 2016, and is forecasting a rise of population around 34 million by 2025. You see also climates, semi-arid climates that go toward a subhumid from Mali to Ghana. And it also has been affected by different floods, which in the last 20 years have impacted around 2 million of people. And indeed, flood, it's one of the main impacts in Mali, as well as droughts, that in the last 30 years have impacted over 3 million of people. And in Cote d'Ivoire, instead, bushfires, it's a major problem, which also in the last 30 years have affected around 356 villages. And in Ghana, what we are able to see is that in the last 20 years, we could see a pattern of yearly flood with a major event happening on November 2010, where 700,000 people were displaced. In Burkina, we are mainly talking about drought, which 12.4 million people affected in 1969 and 2014, but also floods are mainly impacting Benin and Togo, and they are having consequence not only on the population but also on the productive sector. So how all of these countries are going to cope with this disaster? We have identified main actors in all of this country, which I'm summarizing here as a general actors. And of course, all of them have a role in different aspects of the chain of the DRR and DRM. The monitoring and forecasting, the preparedness and response, the warning, dissemination, communication, and the disaster risk knowledge. So far, we have identified 24 stakeholders that are in the operational chain in these 6 countries. And here it was come the project of WMO, of the VFDM project, which have as a main goal to improve flood and drought management strategies in the Volta basin, and both at the regional level, national, but also local level. So how we can meet this goal? First of all, the first step was to try to have a base analysis to try to understand what are the strengths and the weakness of the countries in their early warning system, but also disaster risk management and reduction procedure. And we did it through a tool that was developed by the CIMA Research Foundation, and we were able to identify a common pattern, 3 main issues that were almost presenting itself for all of the country, which are poor access to hydro-meteorological observation and poor access to satellite information, no impact-based warning, but also something that was really important to assess was that they have limited data sharing and consolidation. So what does that mean? I would like to summarize this as a data fragmentation. That means that data usually in these countries are fragmented among different institutions. And let's remember that data means power. So institution doesn't want to share their data because otherwise they will lose their power. At the same time, data are also have a different detail at different spatial area. So that means, for example, that in a basin, you could have that in some parts, you have much more detailed information than other parts. And this is because funding comes mainly from project. So action and analysis are well project driven. And here it comes the proposal of the project to try to implement a platform that could support activities at national and regional scale, that could support the monitoring, the forecasting, and the dissemination. And that will be called the Volta Alarm Early Warning System. And as we have seen so far before, with the presentation of Marco really well fits the WYN purpose on trying to put together different information, being able to support the different stakeholders and be supportive on the different part of the DRR and DRM chain. But what are the main challenges? So as you are seeing, Marco was showing that the WYN was used by Italy, but also by different other countries. However, the platform is going to change according to the country itself that is going to use it. Of course, you need to customize the platform in order that it could be fully integrated in their current operational procedure. And the main issue, of course, in the Volta basin is that we are talking about 6 countries which have different operational procedure in DRR and DRM. You have 24 users which will have different functionality. And of course, an important part is the sustainability of the platform after the project itself. So how the platform will be able to work and functioning after that the funding of the project will finish. And this is strictly depends and also on the capabilities of the users. So the stakeholders, how are their capabilities on IT system, what are their server, their internet connection is something that is needed to be assessed. So in order to shape the WYN for the Volta alarm and to understand how it will look like, which is still an ongoing process, we are going now through the different current steps, which are identify available data and information, pass an ongoing project, and try to collect and integrate it in the system. And the next steps will be consulting with stakeholders and try to understand what are their system requirements. So please keep tuned. The project started only last year, and we have other 3 years to go, sorry. And here you will have the website where you have all the update on the project. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alicia. That was really interesting. And I think a lot of the challenges that you've highlighted is where young professionals can really play a role in terms of opening up that data and thinking about new ideas around the sustainability of projects as well. So yeah, I think that was a really, really interesting upcoming application of the myDewetra platform. I see, one question coming in from Mariana. Thank you for all the good questions. Who are the automated bulletins sent to? Are these technical audiences, or are they tailored and edited for other stakeholders or users?
Marco, I think this is for you, because I think are the bulletin that refers in the presentation of Italy and Bolivia.
Yeah. So for Italy, for instance, those bulletins are distributed to the local authorities and all the stakeholders, and then it is also published in the website and are available for the general public. Then the text that is attached to the bulletin is customized depending on the target. So we have some text that goes to the local authority that is also referring to the national legislation and so on. And then there is just the maps with a different color that goes to the public. For the other, in Bolivia, I would say there is the same things. There is those 5 bulletins are directly projected on the website where there is the public access on that.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Marco and Alicia. I don't see any other questions coming in, but just to let you all know that we will share the presentations and the recording of this webinar, so you can access them at a later point. Yeah, okay, no, just checking if that was another question. So yeah, we're 1 minute to closing. So I will just thank again Marco and Alessio for giving us this really interesting presentation on the myDewetra platform. Hopefully it's inspired you all or made you all a lot more curious about the different platforms available to kind of connect all these different data sources and enable that end-to-end people-centered early warning system. Also, just to let you know to keep following our Water Youth Network Twitter. So if we have any other webinars coming up, we will let you know. And you can register for those too, so you're more than welcome to do that. And I'll also send around some more information about how to join the Water Youth Network and the Early Warning Systems Young Professional Network, if you'd like to do that as well. So yeah, just to thank you again to CIMA and to the Associated Programme on Flood Management for making this webinar happen. We're really looking forward to collaborating more in the future with the Early Warning Systems Young Professionals Network and the Water Youth Network. And yeah, we look forward to doing that in the future. So thank you, everyone. It's yeah, it's 1:15 now, so we can close unless anybody has anything else they want to add.
I saw there is one more question, I guess.
Oh, I see it. Yes. How do the countries in the Volta basin deal with data limitations?
Yeah, I think that's I can really answer really quickly. So basically, this is the main issue, as I was mentioning before in the presentation, where of course there are no many local observation, and countries are trying to use satellite information as well. So a global model, and then after downscale it to their specific countries or to the basin that we're analyzing. The main problem that we have seen it is that they don't have good server, or sometimes also ability in getting in within the code itself to download the data, because sometimes you know, data format is going to change. NOAA is going to publish data in a different way, and so you need a different code, but they are not able really to get the hand on it. And this is a really big limitation, as well as internet connection, all of the other things. So they're trying to deal through, as I say, satellite information, but of course here it's where I think the weather could come into place in order to have the possibility to see different data sources and be able to compare it and really understand which data sources are more reliable and accurate for the area itself of the analysis.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for that answer, Alicia. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks again to our speakers, and we look forward to learning more about the myDewetra platform and collaborating in the future. So thanks to all the participants who have been joining, and we look forward to keeping in touch with you all about the future webinars and sending you on the PowerPoints and the recording. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lydia. Thanks a lot, and thanks to the organization and WMO also for facilitating this exchange. Thanks a lot from our side.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Alicia.